The wall of fear inside Russia has officially cracked. The strongholds Vladimir Putin once called unbreakable are now collapsing from the inside. What you're seeing on screen is exactly what the Kremlin fears most. In the heart of Putin's own hometown, St. Petersburg, teachers and academics, the backbone of the education system, were caught taking part in a secret ritual. So what were they doing? They were praying for the health of Vladimir Zelensky, a man officially labeled an enemy of the state. This is a reality the Kremlin cannot bury. Confirmed by a report leaked by Eurasia Daily on December 26th, this group of 70 people from across Russia did more than pray. They released public statements calling the Russian army occupiers. And they did this in a country where insulting the army carries a sentence of up to 10 years in prison, risking never seeing freedom again. This is the truth that truly rattles the Kremlin. Even prison is no longer enough to silence anger or conscience. For years, darkness hid the explosion of crime across Russia. That cover is gone. Cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg, once considered untouchable, now rank among the most dangerous streets on Earth. Luxury avenues turn into fireballs as generals' vehicles are blown apart, yet no police arrive. Why? Because the officers assigned to those areas are gone too. Just like everything else, the Kremlin ripped apart its own house to feed the war in Ukraine. So who controls the streets now? Traumatized killers returning from the front, fake gangs in state uniforms, and mafias pulling triggers for anyone who pays. On one side, teachers risk death to resist. On the other, generals are blown apart. While the world watches Ukraine's border, the real war has begun in Moscow's backyard. This is the suicide of an empire. Welcome. And we begin where it all started. Vladimir Putin's single promise to his people: security, trust me, and I will protect you. That was the deal. By the end of 2025, that deal was broken. While the Kremlin claimed it was cleansing Ukraine, the real occupation unfolded on the streets of Moscow itself. The numbers don't lie. According to Russia's prosecutor general, serious crime has reached its highest level in 12 years. This isn't a rise, it's an explosion. Suburbs of St. Petersburg, back alleys of Rostov, Moscow's metro stations, all drowning in violence. Crime spikes of up to 900%, yet no police remain. Stations are empty. Officers are either at the front or gone entirely. The streets are now handed to war-exhausted veterans. Familiar faces lead this violence, men returning from Ukraine. Early in the war, prisons were emptied. Murderers, thieves, repeat offenders. They were handed weapons and a deal, survive 6 months, and walk free. They survived. Now, thousands of traumatized, violence-driven former prisoners roam society. People who only understand force. They are no longer criminals. By Putin's decrees, they are heroes. And that status grants terrifying immunity. What happened in Yekaterinburg isn't fiction, it's Russia's reality. Miki Malichkov, a former Wagner fighter, murdered 2 people in their sleep after asking for shelter. In court, he showed no regret. He said, "I can still be useful. I can send more Ukrainians to the other world. No remorse. Only war." This is Russia's new face. A killer can say this after murder, and walk protected by the system that created him. Even Deputy Defense Minister Anna Tsivaleva admitted it. 1 in 5 returning soldiers suffers severe PTSD. The health ministry says 26% were sent to psychiatrists. And the rest? They may already live next door. Crime is expected to keep rising. The state can no longer control the monsters it built. So, where is the police? This is where the story turns mathematical. When crime skyrockets, while police numbers collapse, a city risks becoming ungovernable. According to Jamestown Foundation reports, Russia's Interior Ministry faces its worst personnel crisis ever, 172,000 officers short. Where did they go? Thousands were sent to occupied Ukrainian territories. Others quit. Low pay and fear of deployment drove mass resignations, so the Kremlin lowered standards. Clean records were once required. Now, even those with criminal pasts are allegedly accepted. The man chasing criminals may be one himself. Rural regions are left without law enforcement. And when the state retreats, people turn to vigilante justice. Russia's famed police state has dissolved in the Ukrainian quagmire. And nature hates a vacuum. Today, there is no safety left, not even in the heart of Moscow. On December 24th, a police vehicle was blown apart in southern Moscow. 2 police officers were killed. This was not an ordinary crime. It was widely seen as a direct challenge to the state inside its own capital. If the Kremlin cannot protect its own police in Moscow, how can it protect ordinary citizens? And it isn't just police officers who are unsafe. Russian generals are targets too. Less than 24 hours before the attack that killed 2 officers, another strike shook the capital. One of the most critical figures in the war was targeted. It began like a normal morning on Yasenevaya Street in southern Moscow. Major General Fenil Sarvarov entered his Kia Sorento and drove only a few meters. An improvised explosive device, likely placed beneath the chassis under the driver's seat and triggered remotely or by motion, detonated with a devastating blast. The explosion didn't just destroy a car, it shattered the idea of security in Russia's capital. Russian media and witnesses confirmed the driver lost control and was rushed to the hospital with severe injuries. General Sarvarov, however, died from his wounds. When Svetlana Petrenko, spokesperson for the Russian Investigative Committee, addressed the cameras, her expression said everything. Even in Moscow, control was slipping away. Putin could no longer protect the generals he relied on most. And Sarvarov was not alone. Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov was killed outside his home in Moscow. Another Lieutenant General, Yaroslav Moskalik, died in a car bomb outside the city. A submarine commander, Rajitki, was shot during his morning run. A member of parliament, Ilyaka, was executed near Moscow. Taken together, Moscow, the heart of Russia, has become an assassination zone. The FSB is powerless. The police are overwhelmed. The streets are unsafe. And, the situation gets worse. In Putin's own hometown of St. Petersburg, a gang wearing police uniforms kidnapped and robbed civilians. State authority has weakened so badly that even uniforms are now tools of crime. When real police disappear, fake police fill the void. This is not chaos. It is textbook societal collapse. Instead of fixing this, the Kremlin's military elite presents a very different picture. While citizens lock themselves inside from fear and police die on the front, disturbing claims surface about top generals. According to allegations, commanders who once promised to be the last to leave Kyiv are now drinking cocktails in 5-star hotels in the Dominican Republic. On one side, freezing citizens abandoned to criminals. On the other, elites resting on warm beaches. Whether fully verified or not, these images spread across social media as the clearest symbol of Russia's collapse. People are exhausted, not only by crime, but by the moral decay brought by the war. This is no longer just a security crisis, it is a moral one. And moral collapse is often the first sign of an existential state crisis, because Russia's security priorities have shifted completely. The FSB no longer hunts street criminals or violent gangs. Its focus is singular opponents of the regime. If you hold an anti-war banner in Moscow, special forces can surround you in minutes. But if armed men break into your home, help may never arrive. This shift has torn a hole in Russia's defense shield. Public safety is no longer the goal. Protecting Putin's seat is. And that blind spot exposes Russia to the most dangerous asymmetric threats in its history. The Crocus City Hall attack proved this. Gunmen roamed freely inside Moscow's largest concert hall, firing at civilians. The famed security apparatus arrived hours later. The system was paralyzed. Now that paralysis appears permanent. In a country without police, justice, or secure borders, the state is losing its monopoly on violence. Russia is drifting toward a feudal security model. Oligarchs, corporations, and local officials no longer trust the state. They are forming private armies. It is no coincidence that Gazprom has been granted authority to create its own security units. This is an unspoken admission that central authority has failed. Everyone is now on their own. Russia is sliding back into a 1990s-style lawless atmosphere, or something worse, where each region answers only to itself. And in the middle of this collapse stands the ordinary Russian citizen, defenseless and alone. So where does this lead? Strategically, Putin's war in Ukraine is boomeranging back into Russia itself. Hundreds of thousands sent to the front mean not only lost labor, but lost order. Billions spent destroying Ukraine are billions stolen from Russian city security. While the Kremlin dreams of Kyiv, it has surrendered Moscow's back streets to crime. This is strategic self-destruction. The social contract, the promise of security, is shattered. People feel it every day. No one will protect us anymore. Not the police, not the army, not the Kremlin. And once that belief takes hold, the glue holding a state together begins to dissolve. This 900% crime increase isn't a number. It's millions of people living in fear, checking locks, avoiding police, afraid to ask for help. This is the real face of Putin's Great Russia in 2025. Outwardly aggressive, inwardly hollow, the war is no longer just in Ukraine. Its deepest damage is in Moscow's metro, St. Petersburg's streets, Rostov's parks. And in this war, the Russian people stand alone. Darkness is falling. And this time, no one is left to turn on the lights. So we ask you, if a state cannot protect its police and generals in its own capital, can it still call itself a superpower?